is the number to call us on. You can text, it's 81333, start your message with the word Ken. Email steve.ladner@bbc.co.uk, and we're here on WhatsApp as well, 08000 321 333. And don't forget the socials, Facebook and Twitter. BBC Radio Kent official on Facebook. Twitter, you can tweet us at BBC Radio Kent.
Steve Ladner.
BBC Radio Kent.
Rising up.
It's about designing a package, and it's created in 1 minute out of pulp. And I remember my husband at the time, 5.5 years ago, saying, "Oh my goodness, what are you putting that beautiful bottle in that package for?" And I said to him, "You just wait and see, you wait and see, this is modern luxury." And we have now, thankfully, been emulated or copied or inspired quite a few people in the industry, big brands, to do the same.
So of your packaging, sorry to interrupt,
Yeah.
how much of it then is not recyclable and is throwaway? Because you mentioned that kind of tasting club for the
Yes.
the fragrances, and they come in what look like little glass bottles with what look like little plastic aerosols in them, the way
Yes.
you normally get with those taster packs. So some of that surely must have to go to landfill, doesn't it?
No, well, the only piece of that can't actually be recycled is that tiny bit of plastic that you see in the bottle. I can't change that. That has to be an industry-wide initiative.
So what is that, the aerosol spray?
It's not aerosol at all, it's a pump.
Okay.
The pump is made of, it's got a little tiny spring in it, which is metal. It's got a tiny bit of plastic. And the same in the large bottle. So glass, there are very few glass manufacturers. In fact, probably only one in the UK, and that is not a grade quality for cosmetics. So you have to get the glass produced somewhere else.
So if anyone's listening who makes the makes the spring pump thing,
No, it's
and
true.
and it's completely recyclable, they should get in touch.
Yeah, they should, but I mean, I'd happily do that. But also in fragrance, because you have alcohol in the fragrance, it has to be glass, it can't be plastic, and the pump has to have this little stem. But what we do is we work with a group called Clean Hub, which anybody can look up, and we offset that tiny piece of plastic, we measure that, and we offset that with Clean Hub, and we pay them, and they initiate and pay women in India to clean plastic out of the oceans and recycle that. That is the way I offset that tiny bit of plastic. I wish I could solve it, Winifred, but at this point, I can't.
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand. So
Yeah.
I'm not trying to get it. I'm just trying to
No, it's
understand.
fine.
The smells themselves, then, because obviously that's what it's all about, isn't
Yeah.
it? No one will buy this stuff unless they think it smells wonderful. Who creates them, and are they different in any way?
Yes, his name is Jerome Epinette, and he is a master perfumer. And to become a master perfumer, you have to train for approximately 7 years. You have to learn about 5,000 ingredients, some sort of fantasy ones that you can create in the lab, and some natural. And I'm not a nose. Some people who have fragrance brands talk about themselves as creating the perfumes, but I'm not a nose, I'm not a specialist. So I wanted this to be fine fragrance. So he's a master perfumer. Robertet are a French generational company who have the most access to sustainably sourced ingredients in the world. So I've actually been to the rose harvest down in Grasse and sat with the farmer and seen how they're picked and how they're processed. So he creates. I come up with the ideas and I put a mood board together about the kind of mood muse, I call it, really, that I'm wanting to create, that I hope will inspire individuals. And then he creates fragrance around that. And then we during lockdown, we were sending them to each other. When we weren't locked down, I was going to New York where he's based, and we were smelling lots of things. And then we launch, a lot of different steps go into creating the actual bottles, the artwork. I think we've got about 32 British companies touch our products. So
yes, it's made here, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
All made here, all of it.
Apart from the fragrance oils, which are created by Robertet.
And the bottles?
We manufacture those in Poland because, as I said, you can't manufacture that grade of glass in Britain, and we bring them over from Poland, and then we put everything else is manufactured here and put together.
Floral Street costs £68 for 50 millilitres of perfume, and just to give you an idea of price comparison, our audience anyway, it's £91 to buy the same size bottle of, say, Coco by Chanel. So who is buying Floral Street? Is it a particular kind of person? When I started the brand, I thought it was really going to be about a younger consumer. We also do a smaller bottle than that. It's a 10 ml. And that's about £28 for a 10 ml. So there is a price point that you can get in at a lower price point. That was important to me. We're finding we have like groups of people, like, because we're vegan, we have a lot of vegan followers. We have a lot of younger followers because we don't use the word sex or sexy in the brand. We don't sell according to, it's more about how do you want to feel. And we've got amazing sort of older following as well. I call it an interested modern consumer who cares about what they're buying and how it's being made, and also quality. So it is a fine fragrance. After this programme is around 12:30, you'll be able to hear Greg Foote with his latest investigation for sliced bread. And today, Greg's looking at whether natural sleep remedies, teas and tablets and stuff can really help you drift off. You can hear that and other episodes of Sliced Bread and of this programme by searching BBC Sounds. But this is Gap Finders, and today I'm talking to Michelle Feeney, the founder of Floral Street, a British perfume company that she set up in 2017. Michelle, what would you say has been your biggest success with it all so far then?
Well, we're currently, it's only 5 years old really, and we're currently in 22 countries.
Wow.
Yes, we employ over 20 people in the UK directly, and then obviously we're creating business for the packaging companies and everything else along the way. So to me, I'd been in very large companies before this, building billion dollar brands. And to me, just to sort of think we are still here after a pandemic, that we're creating something that I've just been in the United States, and that, brings joy, and people are buying it in a store that don't know me. And, I think that to me is an incredible feeling of success and pride, that I can do this from London.
You mentioned that your mum and dad ran a wine shop.
Yeah.
Tell us what your family life was like.
It was great. My mum moved to the UK from Ireland when she was 14, obviously with her family, and to Birmingham, which must have been a bit of a shock. And my dad was from Birmingham as well. They both were entrepreneurs, I think, when I look back, and my mum is still with us, thank goodness.
You know, they took risks. They went and they saw an ad in a paper for a couple to run a store, neither of which they'd done before, and they took the ad, and that came with a flat above the shop in Coventry. And so I was bundled into a car, and off we went. It was full. I lived, you know, I was part of a bigger, wider Irish community. It was always full of joy. Tough, you know, tough to earn money and work your way up. But I think really they showed me to believe in myself, no matter what, and to have a go and to sort of see things differently as well.
You had an amazing working life before you started your new company, Floral Street, and we could spend a whole programme on that. But I know that you went to Newcastle Polytechnic.
Yeah.
You studied consumer science, then you moved to London, worked in PR for Lynn Franks, who was the inspiration for Adina, and absolutely fabulous.
Yes.
Was it like our fab?
It was totally like our
Was it really?
It was really. I actually couldn't laugh when I watched it because it was so true to life in so many ways.
I can't believe that.
It was, in fact, one of the episodes I was like, oh my goodness, that was me, you know. It was just wonderful, the 80s in London. I worked for a lady called Leslie Goring before that, who was my first boss, amazing. You know, it was full of women that were just coming off International Women's Day, but, you know, full of women that were just doing things in a different way, running companies, growing, thriving, not in the same way that the 60s had been or the 70s. You know, it was really, and she empowered, you know, as a director at 27, 28, and working with big companies and building things, and loads of fun, but loads of hard work too. You know, I don't think I got in before midnight any night of the week. Lots of alcohol was consumed at the time, but it was more about the inspiration of women, inspiring other women and empowering them to do things differently.
Sorry to interrupt you. You went on to be a massive success. So you set up your own PR company in America. You worked with some huge brands, as mentioned. You were headhunted by Estée Lauder. Then you were vice president of global communications at MAC.
Yeah.
And you took MAC then to 40 countries.
Yeah.
What would you say is in you then that makes you such a success?
That's a really hard question, actually, because I don't really.
You don't know.
I don't. No, I do.
You don't know how to be any other way.
Do you know? I don't know how to be any other way, and it drives me mad, and probably the people around me as well. But I see something. I see a vision. I see how it can be. I love working in big, successful teams with really high-level people. You know, with MAC, it was incredible. I also had a massive impact and role with the MAC AIDS Fund, so I was able to
they set up an AIDS fund, didn't they, in 1994?
Yeah, and then we inherited that because Lauder bought it, so I didn't invent all this, but I had the power to then make that bigger and that voice heard louder, and that married with commerce for me made it. I was like, this is it. This is how life works. You find something you love. You're with a group of great people. You have a vision. You make it happen, but you also do some good along the way.
Well, we ask all our gap finders to tell us who has their back. You know, who do they turn to for support? Who can they always rely on at this point in their life? And you have chosen Chelsea Alexandru. She's the global marketing manager at this company, this new company, Floral Street, that you've set up. And she's with you in the studio today. So Chelsea, the story of your meeting with Michelle is quite funny in itself, isn't it? Tell us about that.
Yes, it is. Well, thank you for having me.
You're
and thank
welcome,
you, Michelle, for bringing me here. So yeah, I guess I found my gap, you could say. But I actually went to university with Michelle's son, who was my friend Harry at the time, and he said to me one day, we were in Nottingham, he said, "Oh, my mum's coming up for lunch. Would you like to come out with us?" I was like, "Okay, great. I'm going to meet Harry's mum." And that's all that Michelle was to me at that point. And I remember we sat around the table having lunch, and you know, Michelle was asking me what I was doing and what my interests were. I was studying business entrepreneurship. I felt I've always been very entrepreneurial and really wanted to, you know, hit the ground running. So I was telling Michelle my life story at a very young 20 years old. And I turned around to Michelle and I said, "Michelle, what do you do?"
What did you think she did?
I don't know. What do you expect people's mums to do? You don't expect them
She thought she made casseroles and did a lot of knitting or something. I don't know. Not that there's anything wrong with knitting. I love knitting.
I can do that too, you know.
That is exactly what I thought. And you know, Michelle gracefully told me that she'd worked for MAC Cosmetics and launched it globally in 40 countries.
Wow. You must have felt what, like a chum?
I almost fell off my chair. And then I pulled my friend up about that afterwards, and I said, thanks for the heads up about your mum being this amazing beauty industry guru.
Why do you think she chose you then, Chelsea, as the person who has her back today?
Well, I think I pestered her very much after I came out of university asking for a job. And, you know, I've been there from the beginning. I started in Michelle's house. We were in the basement, packing boxes till midnight. Not drinking lots of alcohol at that point, just to clarify.
No, the world's changed, hasn't it, since the days of Ab Fab? It's harder now.
Yes, it's different for sure. And yeah, and I think, you know, my commitment to the brand and Michelle hopefully is why she's brought me here today. But you know, that same sense of community and belonging that I have, and you know, we learn from each other. I learn a hell of a lot from Michelle, as you can imagine. But equally, you know, she's very open in learning about what I see and how I see things. And, you know, I'm of a different generation and we consume information differently and we have different viewpoints and values. So hopefully, collaboratively, with Michelle and the wider company, we have a good vision and we merge all that together to bring something good to the world.
Do you ever worry about her, Chelsea?
Always. You know, I think in a startup,
In what way? Yeah, go on.
you worry about everyone. You worry about your friends, your teammates, you know, your boss, the people that work with you. It's tough, you know, it's a startup. We work very hard. There's highs and lows. It's a roller coaster. And I think no matter what age you are or what position you are in the company, you know, we're there together as a team. So I think you have to have each other's backs, and that's what makes it work, really.
Chelsea Alexandru, thank you.
Thank you.
Michelle, we ask all our gap finders this question. What would you say has been your biggest mistake along the way?
Look, I'm sure everybody says this who comes on, you know, mistakes really are massive learnings when you've got a company and life, actually. But I think I probably have had the vision of the brand before I thought about the business that needed to support that vision. But maybe I wouldn't have done it at all if I'd have, you know, P&L'd it to death at the beginning. But,
What does P&L'd it mean?
I mean, well, if you constantly do a P&L on everything.
What is a P&L?
It's a profit and loss.
I'm sorry, of course.
No, it's okay. A profit and loss document, because a startup, you know, you never know which way it's going to go. The wind blows, and of course we've had a lockdown for 2 years. So I think I've become a better business person because I've having my own company versus letting somebody else think about that in a bigger company.
Are you making a profit?
We just have.
After, gosh, so
Hooray.
a lot of years of loss then. You were talking about P&L. You know, a lot of years of out.
A lot of years of out. I'm lucky enough at the point in my life that I did make some money, and my husband has too, and we have invested our own money in this, so it isn't, I haven't borrowed anything.
Yeah, you're not losing other people's money.
No, which I don't know if that's a good or bad thing.
It depends who the people are, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
How much you like the people whose money you're borrowing. I asked for some questions at the beginning, and this one has come in from Liz Tuttle. She just says, when I was young and you got a sample of perfume, it came in a glass vial, but with a rubber stopper.
Mm-hmm.
So couldn't you make your samples like that, just minus that little plastic spray?
Yes, potentially I could. That's something I have looked into. You still have got that little piece of rubber or plastic that's on the top.
But the rubber would be biodegradable, wouldn't it?
I don't know if it is, actually. I don't know how sustainable rubber is anymore.
Okay.
Look, I'm happy to look into that and answer that question, but I'm not sure.
You've broken into the US and Australian markets.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned all the countries that you've moved into. Now that is quite a big thing. It's probably a huge thing, isn't it, for a British company to be able to do, particularly, you know, a smallish startup like yours.
Yeah.
What was the key to doing that? Or, you know, what would you say to anyone else thinking of it?
Well, I am lucky that people know me in the industry globally. So I got the phone call, listened to, or the email. But I think it's about how you create what you're creating, looking at different markets and seeing they are very different.
and not thinking just because you think it here, it is so everywhere else. So I think get some expertise about where you might be going into, but also because we were different, because we were sustainably packaged and talking about sustainable ingredients in fragrance before anybody else, that actually got us the distribution, because those markets were more ready for our products than our own market was.
You sell your perfume now, don't you, in a number of shops, including John Lewis, but a lot of different shops. Do you have to do that? Do people not buy perfume out online without ever having smelled it? Because that was the surprise with other cosmetics, wasn't it? That people would buy, I don't know, an eyeshadow, a foundation, without ever having seen it or held it.
Yeah, I think people do. I mean, the interesting thing right now, this moment in the zeitgeist of the world, is TikTok, and that if an influencer or a TikToker says this perfume's great, people just buy it. I mean, it's quite shocking to me, really. But we do a good business online, and you build up with that customer and that consumer, and you inform them and you sample with them, and I think people, you have to describe things differently, but once you've established yourself as a trusted brand in what you're doing, I think people are more likely to take a bit of a risk and order something online.
So what about the future then? What are you focusing on for the future? Will you stick with Floral Street, or is there even more, you know, have you got even more ideas?
Oh gosh, I've got an idea a day, but I wish I was about 20 years younger, and then I would. Look, I'm building this brand. It's a lifestyle brand. We're enjoying success. It's very tough in the marketplace in the world right now, but I've got the bug. We're building it. I want to develop. I want to be even better at the sustainability side. I want to solve that bit of plastic, and I want to create products that are going to change the way people think and use beauty and consume it, but without taking the beauty and the joy out of beauty.
Michelle Feeney, founder of Floral Street, thank you so much for being our Gap Finder today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Well, that's it from us. The producer was Catherine Earnham and the studio manager was Amy Brennan. Next up, Sliced Bread and Greg Foot's Finding Out.
because they were so brilliant, everyone would know that wandering.
Bins across Kent are being missed each week. Data obtained through Freedom of Information requests show residents' waste has gone uncollected more than 155,000 times over the last 2 years. Tunbridge and Malling in the Canterbury district are responsible for about 2/5 of cases since 2021. The leader of the TMBC says things have improved, but Mark Hood, Green Party councillor on the council, says the problem lies with their contractor.
My residents have been frustrated throughout the entirety of the Abaser contract which we've got with Tunbridge and Malling and Tunbridge Wells. So it's been an ordeal. They're getting better in some respects. While collection figures have improved, that's been at the expense of other parts of the contract and the performance of Abaser.
Swale and Sevenoaks had the fewest missed bin reports. The BBC understands that the government is to delay building work on certain sections of the high-speed HS2 rail line in an attempt to cut costs. Original estimates of around £35 billion for the project have ballooned to at least £71 billion. Here's our transport correspondent, Katie Austin.
My understanding from the background to this is it's extremely unlikely that there would be any change to the initial stretch, which is from Old Oak Common in West London to Birmingham. I mean, work on that is 40% complete already. Where there's more questions is what about the phase 2, so from Birmingham to and from Crewe and then on to Manchester. Maybe there could be some changes to the timing there. We don't know if the eastern leg would be included in today's announcement, so we're waiting for details.
A boy's been robbed at knife point in a park in Gillingham. He was walking in the Great Lines with a friend on Saturday afternoon when two teenagers wearing balaclavas approached him. He was held by one and threatened with a knife by the other while they stole his phone. Police are appealing for witnesses. More than 200 people are in temporary accommodation in Gravesham, with some stuck there for over 5 years, according to the council leader John Burden. Gravesham Borough Council has seen a rise in the amount it's spending on housing people in the short term. Jasmine Basran is head of policy at the homelessness charity Crisis.
We now know that temporary accommodation levels across the country are at their highest rate for the last 18 years. So this is a problem that is mounting. There's huge pressures on families with costs, increasing rents, and many just feel like there are very little options or no options on the table.
The government says it's investing £2 billion over 3 years, including providing financial support for people to find a new home, working with landlords to prevent evictions, or providing temporary accommodation. The Match of the Day host Gary Lineker has said he stands by his criticism of the government's asylum policy. Downing Street has said that his tweet, likening language used by ministers to that of Nazi Germany, was unacceptable. The BBC said it would discuss impartiality guidelines with him. And the UK's entry for this year's Eurovision Song Contest has been revealed for the first time.
Instead of how you did me wrong,
The singer, Mae Muller, will perform a I Wrote a Song in Liverpool in May. Eurovision superfan and blogger William Lee Adams told BBC Radio Kent what he thought of the song.
There's not a climax. You know, I feel like we have great verses, it's building, but then it's really just an instrumental. The chorus isn't as catchy or instant as I'd like it to be. However, the more you hear it, the more you like it. And of course at Eurovision, they repeat the song during the recap, so perhaps she'll get stuck in people's heads.
And Kent's weather overcast this afternoon with some sharp showers, especially towards this evening. Highs today of 10 Celsius. To hear your latest update, just ask your smart speaker to play BBC News for Kent. To the roads then. We've got a breakdown in Bigham Hill on Saltbox Hill between Jules Hill and Main Road. The road is partially blocked. There is a diversion in place. In Strood, 10-minute delays on the A228 Finsbury Hill between the route to the Medway City Estate and Berwick Way. Got the usual congestion as well on the A264 Pembury Road between the centre of Tunbridge Wells and the A21 at Pembury. That's about a 10-minute delay at the moment. On public transport, got some issues with the strike action in France, which is affecting DFDS Seaways. About half an hour delays between Dover and Calais. There's also disruption on DFDS Seaways, Irish ferries, P&O ferries, as well between Dover and Calais and Dover and Dunkirk, as well as a reduced service on the Eurostar. That's the travel, more in half an hour.
Thank you, John.
the sound of Kent. Together we can make a difference. BBC Radio Kent.
The Rewind.
BBC Radio Kent. Tick-tock.
The Rewind.
I'd rather be in love with